Stuff like that, and you have to basically apply what you learned through the academy. And I remember when we went to the domestic one, me and my buddy, we would have got smoked.
Yeah.
Because literally the guy was walking around with his hands in his pockets, going over to his bag, and they're like, he stopped at the end. He goes, you guys got to pay attention. I was young at the time, so again, I didn't have that field experience. Right. And he pulls a gun obviously a fake gun, out of the bag. He pulled, I think, a knife or another gun out of his pocket. He goes, yeah, you guys got to pay attention.
No kidding.
Especially domestics. Domestics are one of the most dangerous, besides motor vehicle stops, I would say.
Really? Like going to, in other words, going to other people's houses and stuff?
Oh, absolutely. You're going into their domain. You don't know where the weapons are.
That's one thing I really... And just recently put more thought into and sort of feel a little bit more appreciation for, especially with that occupation, being a police officer and having to assess I always say, you never know whose car you're walking up to.
Oh, absolutely not.
You never know whose house you're going to.
That's why tinted windows are terrifying sometimes.
Yeah.
You can't see anything in the car.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's definitely that fine line between the state being that of a police state and that of being a safe state. You know what I mean? Because there's certain things that definitely should be put into play. And that one of the things, and this is one of the things they were talking about in that Joe Rogan's podcast that I wanted to pick your brain about. And do you know who Jocko is?
No.
Jocko Willink. He's a retired Navy SEAL. He's written a few books. He teaches a lot of things about leadership and ownership. He's a super inspirational guy. Jiu-jitsu, black belt and everything, I believe. You correct me on that. I know he's very well versed in martial arts. Though he was saying that about a fifth of a police officer's year should be spent in training.
Yeah, like
every year.
BJJ.
Yeah, what's that?
Or like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
No, well, I'm just saying in general, like training for more like de-escalating situations, combat training, those types of things. Because the SEALs, if I remember the podcast correctly, he was saying those soldiers and many other different factions of soldiers in the U.S. military have training that's done on an annual basis throughout the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have. It's probably I think it's the same in every state. It's called in-service. Uh-huh. So every year it's different stuff. Every year you have in-service. So it's like they go over basic laws or changes in the laws.
Yeah.
So if there's case law that comes up and changes and stuff like that, and that can change year to year. This year I think we did suicide of police officers because that's been a huge issue for the past 2 years, and of cops committing suicide and suicide by cop. So suicidal subjects that are kind of trying to force police officers to shoot them. Mm-hmm. You see that all the time.
Yeah,
that's a hard situation.
And how often does that training take place throughout the
It's once a year. We do different stuff throughout the year, and a lot of police departments they'll make you do other trainings, and they send you to specialized trainings. That's a thing. A lot of people want to say the training in the police and stuff like that. The use of force continuum's been the same. I don't know how you can change it any differently. I'd like to see how they could without making it any more dangerous.
What's your take on like the combative training, like hands-on combative training that officers receive? Like that was another thing they were saying. Every officer, it would be a great idea if every officer, and I totally agreed, if they had at least a purple belt.
Oh, absolutely.
In like jiu-jitsu or something.
I agree with it.
Because imagine how quickly you could de-escalate or disarm a situation.
The biggest thing with going hands-on with people is they always teach you to stop the threat or stop the person as fast as you can, because the longer it goes on, the more likely they are to get hurt or somebody else or you or another officer.
Anytime I've seen one of those terrifying videos where the person gets away and ends up shooting at the cops, like getting out of his own firearm, like those are terrifying. Those are usually the ones like you're saying, they just take too long and they can't detain the guy in time, and he ends up getting away.
The Gracie brothers, they do a lot of good videos for law enforcement. Mm-hmm. Actually, I've looked up a few. There's a lot of benefits to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just because the ground is the safest place to be.
Yeah.
If you're standing up, most of the time you're going to be throwing punches, and if you're not throwing punches, you're tying up with the person, and it's going to end up on the ground anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the safest place to be.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was we were talking about earlier too, is the what it's actually like to be in that confrontation, because again, a lot of people, we'll say 99.9% of people who
Yeah.
see these things taking place are just comfortable at home. They're completely outside of the box looking in, and watching somebody be detained versus detaining somebody is a completely different experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And there are some, what are some things that people should kind of understand that are going through probably not only the mindset of the officer but also the person who's.
Yeah, that's another thing that a lot of people don't understand. So this is some case law for you. Graham versus Connor. It was 1989, where actually the gentleman was having a diabetic problem. He ran into a store to get soda. The line was too long. He ran out back to the car, and they took off at a high rate of speed. And the police officer stopped him because he thought he robbed the store.
Yeah.
So when they stopped him, he was acting very suspicious and obviously having a diabetic problem.
Yeah.
He was slurring his words, had like a fruity beverage smell.
What's the
on
name
him.
of that condition? I know diabetes. Most people, if you don't know this, diabetes can induce like an acute amnesia type state where you're not sure what's going on.
Yeah, it's hyper and hypo.
Hypoglycemic.
Yeah, so there's low and high sugar. And
hypo. That's right.
basically, he
when
started
you're
kind
low.
of resisting with the police officer.
Yeah.
And they detained him. They actually arrested him, and for like resisting arrest. But then they found out he didn't rob the store, so they actually tried suing the city.
Oh my
So
God.
this is how the case law came out of it. Graham versus Connor, and I forget what one's the cop and the other one's the other person. But basically, the court has to look at it through the police officer's point of view. So objectable, reasonableness. Can't even talk right now. But basically, you have to look at it through the point of view as a police officer, in the court. So that's the biggest thing when people try to decide on these cases. You can't look at it from a third view. That's how the court rules it.
Yeah.
That's why you always got to kind of pull case law in.
Right.
Law is very important.
Yeah.
That's how people kind of base their stuff. Police officers, that's what our training is on.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's another thing
based
too,
on
because
law.
somebody brought up a pretty good point how quickly one can become a police officer and how long it might take you to become a lawyer. When both are, I mean, obviously both aren't doing the same thing, but law is a pretty big aspect of boundary when it comes to enforcing the law. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is kind of weird. The only thing is I have a bachelor's in criminal justice,
Yeah.
and I forget what the saying was. I forget. Somebody I used to work with, who was a trooper, he told me in college, what was it? In college, they teach you how it should be done, and in
Yeah.
the academy, they teach you how it is done.
Yeah.
Because in college, it's completely different.
Well, it's probably all
And-
book.
Yeah, it's all book
book-oriented,
stuff. I
like-
mean, you learn a lot of case law and stuff.
Yeah.
That's why if you go to school before the academy, all the book stuff, it's like, oh, okay, this is easy.
Yeah.
But when you start applying it, you're like, oh, okay, this isn't the same at all.